So I'm going to start off this one with what is a very obvious, uncomfortable truth, but me saying it is not gonna upset anyone, because we all know this. Fandoms suck. Fandoms really do suck. Fandoms can be awful, for many reasons, but specifically to this video, what I want to talk about today is sort of infighting within the fandom. Tribalism, where people gather around one theory, or interpretation, or character, and fight with people who disagree with them, or like a different character better. Now, obviously, healthy discussion and debate with people you disagree with or see things different from is all well and good, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about genuine toxicity and vitriol and nastiness and mean-spiritedness within a fandom of people who love the same story, who are passionate about the same story. This shit sucks. It's awful. But I promise this isn't going to be a doom and gloom thing, but there's going to be some doom and gloom. I say this because there was a comment I received on one of my videos. Actually, let me just bring it up, because I don't have it on hand. I don't remember it word for word. It was on my Verso video for Expedition 33. Sorry. Jump scare my voice. And it said, sorry, it was actually on my Mael video. Sorry, I'm stumbling around here for, right now. Sorry about that. It's been and sorry for my voice again. So, it was on my Mael video, and someone said, basically, this is Expedition 33, by the way. I'm not going to spoil the specifics about this story, but just so you know, for the context of this comment, and this isn't me blasting the person at all, it's just me, I think it's a really good jump-off point for what I want to say here. The person said, so in this game, there are choices that can be made, and one of them is for a certain character, and the other is for a different character, and the people in the fandom who choose one character's path often butt heads with people who choose the other, and maybe one could argue one side's worse than the other. It probably is, but regardless, both sides have been, to me, very horrible, because I have, over the years since Expedition 33 came out, a year and a bit, I have defended both characters, I've shown nuance with both characters, I love both characters, and so as a result, I've upset both sides, and people really do not like when other people love one side of one side of the debate. And so when I say I love this character, they automatically called me a ex-defender who obviously advocates for tons of horrible things that this character's done, because he has done horrible things, without, like, realizing that you can love a character because they're well-written, not because you agree with them morally. You can love a character for reasons outside of the idea that you agree with everything they do. You can love a character for reasons that don't have to do with vitriol and tribalism against another character. In fact, I love both. So what I want to say is, this comment said, people who choose this path, basically, have to paint this character as evil in order to justify their genocidal path, I guess. A lot of people die if you do something. Which I took exception to, obviously. I said, I don't like comments like that, basically, because I think it's very tribalistic. I think it really fails to take into account the people that are worth talking to, that are worth discussing these things with, who do not feel that way just because they chose one route over another. You have to choose something, right? To which they replied, yes, I said essentially, I don't feel that way. Lots of people don't feel that way. This is tribalistic, and I don't think it does anything but breed toxicity to talk in this way, because there are lots of people who don't feel that way. To which they replied, essentially, yeah, you feel this way, but tons of people are awful, who say that everything this character does is perfect, who shame the other character, who are demeaning and awful to the other character, and that I'm an exception, not the rule. To which I don't, like, it's true, there are tons of horrible people. But to me, if you then respond to vitriol and hatred with more tribalism in a way that reinforces and exacerbates that divide and chasm and lack of communication, these sorts of fights come about because no one is interested in understanding other people's point of view. They're only interested in being the most uncharitable people possible with regards to someone's take. Because, in fairness, a lot of takes of this nature tend to be very aggressive and very over the top and very lacking in nuance. So that is the assumption to make, that when you talk about people who choose this path, they all do this. Now, even if they don't feel that way, some people say that. People who defend this character, or people who love this character, are advocates of everything he does. And yeah, I get that it's a reaction to it. I get that it's frustrating and it's wrong in the first place that people attack the other side. But to me, there is no benefit. There is no benefit outside of airing frustration in matching that sort of toxicity with an equal toxicity. With everyone who does this, paint them under the same brush and say, yeah, they all advocate and they're totally cool with horrific acts. That's simply not the case, and I think pretending that it is only further divides this sort of civil war in a fandom. And I kind of said that in response. Again, not putting this person on blast at all, but it's just something I disagree with in terms of the way I think people should conduct themselves in fandoms with regards to issues like this. Another example is Naruto. Now, in Naruto, for anyone unfamiliar, there are, I guess, two main heroines. There are a bunch of female characters, but two in specifics that fulfill a similar-ish role. Hinata and Sakura. And I remember distinctly when I was reading Naruto on stream, I was in the middle of some incredible Hinata stuff. And so I tweeted about why Hinata's awesome and I love her. And I was dragged, absolutely dragged throughout Twitter to hell and back by a section of Sakura fans who, like, laughed at me, diminished what I loved about Hinata, diminished Hinata, said horrible stuff about her, and automatically took me loving Hinata as me not loving Sakura or insulting Sakura. It was bizarre. That tweet got so much traction, and I was completely dragged unreasonably. It was so incredibly gross and tribalistic. And then, funnily enough, a short time after that, maybe a month, maybe a couple weeks, I don't remember exactly, I tweeted love for Sakura, and the exact same thing happened with Hinata fans. Dragged me for loving Sakura, automatically assumed that I thought Hinata was not very good. The opposite's true. And altogether just were not interested in hearing what I actually had to say, and instead just jumped to the assumption that I was the enemy. Because I think there's something in human nature that makes people tribalistic, that makes them just dig their feet in deeper and deeper and deeper into their safe zones or whatever, and go, they're the enemy. If they don't agree with me 100%, they are the enemy. And the more you do that, the less, I think, wise you become, the more ignorant, and the less good it is for your soul, to be honest. Yeah, it's just horrible. It's so nasty. It's so mean-spirited. It makes people who want to discuss the series just kind of decide not to and would rather just stay out of it because of all the pain that it brings and all the hassle and headache. It's like, why would I gush about how much I love Sakura if I'm just going to get dragged for something harmless? Another example. Recently, Final Fantasy VII Revelation came out, and I tweeted, I did some tweets talking about how excited I was. And how do I do this in a spoilerless way? Again, in this game, there's two heroines, Tifa and Aerith, and I tweeted talking about something that I'm so excited about with another of the main villain in Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth, and how he has a really interesting dynamic with Aerith, and how that has to do with the main character, Cloud. And the way that basically what's going on in this, for anyone who isn't aware, is the Final Fantasy VII re-trilogy has adjusted some things. It's changed some characters. And particularly with regards to Tifa and Aerith, it's given Tifa some elements to her character that people would normally associate with the original Aerith, and it's given Aerith elements of her character that are really interesting and interpretive that kind of people associate with Tifa's role. So both women, both female characters, have elements added to their character that overlaps their roles a bit. It isn't quite as simple. It isn't Tifa just does this, Aerith just does this. And I've talked about this for hours in my videos, but so I tweeted about it casually, just like, I can't wait for this thing with Sephiroth and Aerith and Cloud, and I got completely dragged by people who assumed that by me saying that Aerith has this role, it's me disliking Tifa, diminishing Tifa, and just completely lowering her impact on the story by saying that Aerith has this stuff. To which I responded, well, Tifa has this increased role too. Just, I love Tifa. I have spent hours, literal hours, talking about how much I love Tifa. I'm one of her biggest fans, and I didn't mention Tifa in the tweet because it wasn't the topic of the tweet, but likewise, I think Tifa has this stuff that's incredibly interesting too. And still, Tifa's going to be the primary role for that, but I just think Aerith has some importance as well. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. I had conversations, quote unquote, with people who just were not interested in hearing me out. Every single thing I said, it was like they were looking for the worst possible interpretation, trying to paint me in the worst possible light, paint me as someone who hates Tifa, who tries to diminish Tifa, and I've seen it vice versa as well. And it's just so disconcerting. It's so uncomfortable. It's so unfortunate that these brilliant works of fiction are just marauded by such vitriol and toxicity, and people who just assume the worst out of someone who, me in this case, but anyone, who just is discussing something offhandedly, don't mean anything malicious about it, are just phrasing things in a way. What about asking, hey, yeah, wait, what do you mean by this exactly? Oh, okay, I understand what you mean. What happened to politeness? It's crazy. Even if we disagree, as long as I'm saying my things respectively, why can't we be polite? Why do we have to be mean-spirited and aggressive? I've just had incredibly strange conversations of people who just take everything I say in the worst possible way and view me as an enemy, antagonistic language all over the place when I'm just trying to discuss something. I didn't mean anything by it, I promise. And it's so unreasonable and it's so unfortunate, and before, go on a tirade and then block me before I can even respond, because they don't want to hear me. And this isn't just me, this is everywhere, tons of fandoms all over the place. This is an Attack on Titan 2. And generally I'm talking about, within people who love the same story. I've talked in the past about people who totally dismiss authorial intent, and dismiss the value of a story and assume the worst possible thing of a writer and just say that none of their art has value. I've talked about that before. I'm not really talking about that. I'm usually, in this case, I'm talking about people within the same fandom who feel very passionate about the story, who just see people who love different characters or view things differently or have different theories as the enemy. But in this case, I'm talking about people who do really despise the story in some ways, and what I mean is Attack on Titan. There are similar things where there's just a way, there's a language, there is a type of language, a type of speaking to people who you disagree with, when it comes to this, that is so dismissive and so gross and so assumptive. And with Attack on Titan, people who there are people who despise the ending, and who do it in a very respectful way, that people who love the ending just say, oh, you haven't even thought about it, your brain rotted, TikTok brain, you don't want to pay attention to anything that Isayama does, whereas maybe they did pay attention to it and maybe they dislike it. On the other hand, opposite side, I, someone who loves the ending, have been completely dragged, have said my merit as a voice in the space of anime-manga or video games or whatever, on Twitter, in videos, on Twitch, whatever, has been lowered. The value of my voice has been lowered because I like the ending of Attack on Titan. I've been called all incredibly insane sorts of names just because I like the ending and view certain characters certain ways. It's just... I guess my point is, after 15 minutes of talking about this, my point is that fandoms are terrible. And it can really make you despair. It can really make you lose hope. It can really make you just want to shut yourself away, not associate with those stories. I never feel that way, but I understand why others do. And not talk about it. I sometimes feel that way. Just you don't want to talk about it because of all the pain it brings from people who would disagree with you when you aren't doing anything wrong. You just disagree and you want to have a nuanced discussion, but nuance is, for some people, is too difficult, and they just see you as an enemy, and they just slander you, and they drag you. And it can be very... The natural instinct is to respond to that sort of vitriol, with, oh, these people dragged me for loving the Attack on Titan ending. They called me an ending defender with no taste. Okay, I'll call them an ending hater with no taste. But the thing is, that paints everyone who hates that under the same brush. That paints everyone who dislikes the ending of Attack on Titan under the same brush. And that's not the case. I know plenty of people who really dislike or have critiques for the Attack on Titan ending who I understand. Or even if I don't understand them, even if I really disagree with them, even if I think they're wrong, they do it in a respectful way, so I respect them in turn. And vice versa. People think I'm wrong, but because I'm not an asshole about it, they go, okay, we can disagree in the same space, we can talk about it. That is not the default state in the internet. It really isn't. On Twitter, people are gonna be horrible to you within the same fandom for loving a character more than another character, or for thinking about things differently. But I think the take-home point I want to bring up here is fandoms are awful, but don't perpetuate that. Don't reinforce that by giving in and just giving up. Search out for communities that discuss these things in the nuanced, reasonable ways, respectful ways that you want to yourself. Because I promise you, they are out there. It's just that sometimes the vocal, horrible side of things can overtake that. As is natural. Negativity overtakes positivity, unfortunately, in our minds a lot of the time. But I promise you, there is so many beautiful discussions waiting for you if you just seek it out. Seek it out. And luckily, I think I'm lucky enough to have a community that fosters those sorts of discussions. Am I perfect in doing that? No, I make mistakes sometimes. Every community makes mistakes sometimes, but my Discord community is fantastic for that. My Twitch streams, where I talk about, I welcome all perspectives as long as they're respectful. Lots of people have said they love joining the streams or joining the community because people talk about fiction in a way that is different from the nastiness and slander and Twitter speak. So I'm not saying you have to join my community, but I'm saying there are communities out there, even if it's not mine, that will give you what you want. Search it out a little bit. And don't give up, and please just don't be that person who sees horrible discourse from a vocal minority, or even if it's more than a minority, maybe it's half the people, maybe it's a majority, but who just becomes a part of the problem by then using the same rhetoric in the other direction. That solves nothing. It solves nothing. It only perpetuates that horrible discourse and creates unhealthy echo chambers, and in my opinion, it's bad for you. I think it's bad for your soul. The temptation is always there to give into it, but sorry for sounding dramatic. This isn't life or death, but I do think it's very important. The temptation's always there, but I think it's very important to not give into it and to continue searching for proper spaces to communicate the sort of thoughtful, insightful discussion that some of these stories deserve. And just block it out. Just ignore the horrible stuff. It'll always be there, unfortunately, but just block it out. Anyways, that's all I got for today. Let me know what you think. It's a contentious topic. It's an uncomfortable topic. I don't like talking about the negatives of this, but I think it's an important message to get out there. Hopefully you do too. Hopefully you enjoyed this to some extent. And that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.